in action. Rules that keep things going smoothly and fairly. Rules that help us get where we're going. Help us work together, play together, and live together. Of course, in small groups, we sometimes get along without rules.
But there aren't any loud noises, just the sounds of working. We call these work sounds. Listen.
When many of us play together, rules make the game. Rules help us play fair with each other, so all can enjoy the game. Rules that apply equally to all. It's up to each one of us to know the rules and follow them.
Why do you suppose this room is so quiet? Perhaps we can learn from the teacher.
At New York's Madison Square Garden, a city college quintet faces five fast and fancy wet boots from the University of Oregon. It's the opening contest of an intersectional doubleheader, and New York scores 2 points worth of first blood.
And you know, we have found that knowing when to be quiet is a part of growing up.
16,000 fans watch the boys from the Pacific Coast as they try to stem the onslaught of City College fever. But it's all over when Silverstein shoots off the hardwood, decades the ball, and the ball game for CCNY 38-36.
Because a quiet room helps all of us learn.
How do you do it?
Well, each of us knows how to work quietly. That's very important.
But the evening sport is a long way from the locker room. In the second game, a team of Northwestern Wildcats is matched against St. John's University of Brooklyn. The lads from Illinois are off to a springboard start when Bob Coble eases the Allen into the basket to take the lead.
Do you think you could walk this quietly? Listen to this work sound.
But tribal warfare comes to the gymnasium as the St. John's Indians retaliate with 2 points. From now on, the game is touch and go, with 10 men helping to get it there. A beautiful display of teamwork, and Northwestern gets in the number column with sharp-shooting Bob Coble doing the honors.
Welcome, everyone, to Learn the Game, where you learn that you deserve an F for effort in your NBA lessons. Oh, I got a message from Nick, ironically, with the start of this. I don't think he's watching this. Anyway, Politicus Rex, welcome. How are you today, sir?
All right. How you doing?
Fantastic. So today we're going to be talking about some of the craziest NBA controversies in its history, and really specifically what Rex's thoughts are on them. So this is brought up just as an impromptu, no preparation. Let me just throw some things on the wall and let's see Rex's points on it.
I've done no preparation. I don't know what the questions are going to be. Just straight from the shooting from the hip, off the cuff, whatever cliche you want to use.
Mm-hmm. Okay. First things first. So I guess let's just go straight into taboo. Do you think that the NBA prior or during all the Jim Crow laws, do you think that it was not as good of a product because it didn't have as many black people in it?
NBA specifically?
Yes.
Well, yes, obviously the overall product was diminished. We still know what the best players would do, the best white players would do against the best black players, because they still played each other outside of NBA competition. Bill, like Mikan played against the top black centers as well as top white centers. because there were other leagues. And basketball at that time, professional basketball, was predominantly a Northeast regional sport. All of the teams were in the top northeastern quarter of the United States, which has always been free states. There's no slavery in those states to recover, and thus less racism, less bias. So they played against each other all the time. But the NBA product, yes, was diminished.
Do you think that a lot of those players or a lot of those stars would not have been stars if these black players, these were in the NBA? Some of them that George Mikan and others were facing, or others that may have not taken the game as seriously potentially due to all of the laws.
Well, yeah, you always have unknowns and what ifs in everything. I mean, if y'all remember the movie from the 80s, The Natural, there's it's a fictitious story, but fictitious story individually, but it's a well-known, it happens quite a bit. There are far more great players that didn't make it than did, for all sorts of reasons.
Here's another one. I know you love to talk about this. Is the NBA rigged? Do they favor big market teams, and do they try to create dynasties based on these big market teams?
Rigged implies that they're doing something underhanded. They're not. Okay, the Supreme Court ruling on the NFL versus USFL case stated very clearly that professional sports in the United States is entertainment. And the league, as the ownership of that league, they can do what they want. If they want certain teams to get to a certain round of the playoffs, or certain players to be highlighted and be pushed as the face of the league, they can do that. Now, whenever I brought this up in past, people would say, oh, well, what about the Donahue, the corrupt ref in the early 2000s? What about that? It's like, well, he wasn't working. He was on his own. He wasn't working on league orders. So, yes, what he did was illegal. That's why it was illegal. But what most fans don't realize is there are memos, or I guess nowadays they're emails, that are sent out to the refs, to the Rules Commission, to the Players Union, to individual teams, every day from the league office. If you're able to visit New York and actually go to the NBA league office, it's constant motion. They're not just hanging around ordering Subway. They're they're constantly worldwide communications. There's memos. If there's a bad call in a game, there's memos going out to referee, to the other refs, and to coaches. And hey, we're going to start looking at this because this is getting out of hand. We want this to be called this way. And then it is, because guess who signs the paychecks? It's just like any other company. And so many fans, they believe like some sort of utopian, pristine, naive view. And it's like, it's professional sports, and it's a $1 billion company. It's a multi-billion-dollar organization. Nothing is left up to chance. Nothing. The league knows what kind of tape they're using to tape their ankles. Everything is under scrutiny and is watched and is monitored. Everything.
What do you think about load management and how the league in a lot of ways has adapted sitting star players during primetime television. What's your thoughts on the controversy of load management?
Well, for me, there's no controversy. The controversy is mainly for people that quite honestly don't understand money. When you're a billionaire and you're paying someone like Lillard just signed a $42 million a year extension, all right? If he turns his ankle, they're going to sit him till his ankle is healed because they don't want to run the 10% risk that he's going to injure it worse trying to play on it. And now, because they're guaranteed contracts, they're out $42 million. All right. The reason you get load management is because they're getting paid so much. Who do you see go to work injured every day? Who goes, look at longshoremen, look at construction workers, plumbers, masonry. These guys work 5-6 days a week, 10-hour days, a lot of times out in the sun and the elements. They get an injury that an NBA player gets. It doesn't matter. They got to go to work next day because they are financially responsible and they need the money coming in. 75% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Guys in the NBA don't. So if you don't have to work injured, because it is their work, if you do have to work, and if you don't have to work injured, why would you?
Absolutely. I just want to put this out here. If you're watching and you'd like to call in, I put the link in the chat. Feel free to click the link and call up and ask questions. You mentioned Tim Donaghy and Donaghy, however you want to put it, however you say his name.
It's Donaghy, isn't it?
I think it's Donaghy. I think it's Donaghy.
Okay.
So, in respect to Tim, in respect to Tim Donaghy in that scandal, how do you think that affected the reputation of the NBA at large? It happened during the 2005, or the 2006, 2007 seasons. How do you think it affected the NBA at large? And in respect to what you brought up before, how people look at the validity of the game. I know you talked about how it's entertainment at large, but what about guys shaving points for money, how it affects the gambling aspect of it?
Well, that's the problem, and it's always been a problem. Always. I mean, you can go back to 1918 Chicago Black Sox scandal. You can go back and look, Connie Hawkins. And there were others, that it's always been an issue. It always will be because money is involved. That's why I tell people, I'm not a fan of the NBA. I don't participate in their product, unless it's research for the show, and I need to watch a player or watch how a coach coaches or something to contribute to a topic that we're discussing. But I'd much rather just go out. That's not real basketball. It's a homogenized product that has been made to sell to the public. They play 82, each team plays 82 games a year, and then you get playoffs. As many games as the NBA plays every season, that many games are being played every hour out on the street in every time zone all around the world, 24 hours a day. That's real basketball. You go down to the park, you go to the Y, go watch a middle school game. That's real basketball. That's the game. What you're watching with the NBA is a specific product that's been manipulated, homogenized, and tweaked exactly how they want it to increase viewership and consumption of money, to bring in more money. It is not pure basketball. I love basketball. if you say, hey, let's go watch an NBA game or let's go down to the park, watch them run and maybe get in 1 or 2 games, I'm doing that. I'm not watching the freaking NBA.
Yeah. No, I absolutely know what you mean. The microfiber game ball that was in for a season in 2005.
2006, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? It just seemed to abruptly arrive and abruptly leave the NBA as its official ball. What are your thoughts on the ball itself and the whole situation with it?
Well, I go straight to Gil. And Gil spoke very clearly on this in a show that we did, that he loved the ball. Most of the players that he spoke to loved the ball. He still has, I believe he said 10 or 12 of them at his house in a closet because he loves the ball. But the issue he heard brought up where guys were arguing about how the ball was so good that you're going to start having, if somebody comes along and averages 35 points a game or something with that ball, you're going to have the asterisk going, yeah, well, he had a different ball than the guys back in the day. And they didn't want to get into that whole thing when it came to statistics, because these days, and this is why this is one of the things that has really hurt the NBA in its purity, is contracts are tied to individual performance instead of team performance now. Yeah. It used to be if you got to the finals, if you got to the Eastern Conference Finals, if your team won so many games, everybody on the team would get a bonus. Now it's all tied to your individual. If you want a max contract, you have to be first team All-NBA 2 years in a row, or you have to lead the league in a category, or there's different things to tick off to qualify for a lottery ticket for playing basketball in the NBA. So it's changed the motivation of an entire generation of players, multiple generations now at this point. And so according to Gil, and I hope I'm not misquoting or anything here, but I believe he was like, guys love the ball, but the historically great guys were not liking it because they were afraid it would tarnish their image, because you'd be able to throw in, oh yeah, he did this or he did that, but he had the new ball. So they've stuck with essentially the exact same ball since 1984. It's changed from Spalding to Wilson, but the leather cover literally comes from the same manufacturer, the same plant. They just have a different name embossed on it. It's the exact same ball.
Here's a question for you. This is one of definitely more on the social side of it. For civil rights guys, particularly, we'll start with the 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. How do you think what is your take on their position, especially during the civil rights movement, like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Russell in the NBA? What are your thoughts on that and the controversy surrounding it? Particularly a lot of maybe I don't want to say a lot of. I wasn't alive during that time, but I know at least how it is with some of the civil rights stuff going on today. How do you think that affected the league, and what's your take on their involvement with the civil rights?
I believe they were possibly, well, let's put it this way, may not, let me try and be as diplomatic. They proved themselves socially to be more responsible and more upright human beings than the vast majority of modern players have with their fame and wealth and voice. Back then, they had no guaranteed contracts. They weren't getting fair shakes. It's not like today where they claim a lot of stuff. It was real back then. There was no denying it. There was no, well, that's your perspective. It was a fact. They were held down. The laws were made to hold them down. Yeah. And they dealt with it, and they moved past it, and they succeeded despite it. I wonder how many modern players would have been able to fight through that wall and still achieve their greatness. It shouldn't be belittled.
With that transitioning to the NBA with the Black Lives Matter, how they were implementing that within the league, particularly around the COVID time. What are your thoughts on that? There was a drastic drop in viewership after that. How do you think that went? What's your take on the NBA itself adapting, the George Floyd situation and the Black Lives Matter movement?
That type of, whatever word you want to use, highlighting a particular cause, when you do that as a company, you have to understand when you do it, you're going to alienate a large portion of your consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And they may go elsewhere. You have to realize that when you do it. If you still choose to do it, that's on you. And hey, it's your company. Do what you want. But there should have been a more extensive plan in place, going forward with that, rather than just, like, to my knowledge, all they did was like make a show of it. They never really helped anything, did they?
I'm not sure if they donated money or what really came of it. I know that they just, like you're saying, they definitely made a show of it. People wearing jerseys and
but did they actually do anything? I don't believe they did. Maybe they did, and I don't know, because like I said, I don't follow the NBA, but I could be wrong with that, obviously. But I think it was all for show. I think if you look back on it now, it's been what, 7-8 years? 5 or 6, maybe.
Yeah.
If you go back and look, did they actually do anything, or did they just use it as a pedestal to spread their notoriety, so to speak, their image?
Yeah. The way when I look back on it, it just seemed that it was really just kind of a trope per se, where, hey, we're doing this, look at us, we believe all of this. And I don't remember the NBA. They could have. I'm not saying that they didn't. I don't remember the NBA providing any money to any sort of civil rights organizations explicitly following
services,
that.
Did they pay for lawyers?
Yeah,
people, or I don't know. I know people did. Certain individuals did, but the league, the company, I don't think they actually did anything. They just used the message for their own publicity.
Yeah, I don't know if they explicitly gave more money to in the name of Black Lives Matter. I'm sure they probably give money to the NAACP regularly and other organizations like that. But I don't know if they explicitly did it, at the bottom of a check or whatever, saying what you're paying it for. But I'm not sure. The aircraft carrier says Bill Russell had to fight the KKK in the morning and wilt later that night.
Yep.
Not a fun time.
He had a couple different, I believe it was his first road trip as a rookie, which was halfway through the season because he joined the team late after the Olympics. Came home to a cross burning in his front yard.
Mm-hmm.
And then another time, they did a drive-by shooting through his front windows and smeared human feces on his door. That's what he had to deal with.
and his bed.
Was it his bed too? They broke in and did the bed too?
Yeah, I think they threw.
Or that was the same instance.
It might have been a different one, but and then he moved.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd move too. What did it say?
Remember, the reason he was a Celtic was because the St. Louis Hawks management were receiving death threats leading up to the draft, saying, if you draft Russell, we're going to kill you, to the GM and the owner and all of that. That's why he ended up in Boston. And I just heard last week in the comment section, somebody was arguing that, you know, Russell joined a team that was first in the NBA in scoring and blah, 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 and all of this. You know, he joined a loaded team, and, you know, that was so hysterical to me, because these people don't even know that Russell wasn't drafted by the Celtics. He was drafted by St. Louis and traded to the Celtics for a Hall of Fame center, Easy Ed McCauley. Yeah. So when you say he joined a stacked team, no, they had to give up their Hall of Fame All NBA center to get him.
Yeah.
It's like the people just don't know history. They look at one stat, and they don't look into the history of. They look at these things like they're characters on Fortnite or Minecraft or something, and these are human beings living their lives, and there's so much more than just the stats that they achieve on the court, and they don't understand anything about what's actually going on.
Yeah. What is said that the whole Black Lives Matter thing was a mess. It was pretty controversial. He said that the Bucks walked off in the playoffs, and supposedly LeBron was mad because he wanted to do that first.
I heard that, but I didn't know if that was real. But I had heard that before. Yeah.
My other channel got removed from YouTube, sadly. It was pretty devastating, I must say. What it says, Cliff Hagan also got traded during that time.
He ended up being a Hall of Famer as well, but he wasn't part of the previous Celtics team that this one person in the comments was claiming was so dominant before Russell arrived.
Here's another controversy, which is pretty funny. And just as a reminder, if you're watching, please call in and
yes,
ask your
please
own
call.
questions.
Let's get some interaction.
Yep, I'll drop the link again. If anyone is interested. Woodage, I know you've been a long time supporter of the channel, the aircraft carrier. It seems like you have as well. We would love to have you up here. One of my other favorite controversies is with Joey Crawford when he ejected Tim Duncan from the game for laughing on the sideline. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I've had stuff like that happen to me, and all fans always zoom in on is the final straw and then act like that's the only straw. That was an actual argument, if you will, altercation, whatever word you want to use, that had been going on not only for that game, but for multiple seasons. They used to get under each other's skin, and it just boiled over, and he just happened to be on the bench when it boiled over. It wasn't about what he said or did that exact second that he got thrown out. That was just one straw in a hay bale of comments going back and forth between the two for a couple years, I think Duncan had said. Yeah. And Duncan wasn't the only one with Joey Crawford that they had running arguments with. And I don't know if argument is the right word. disagreements.
The aircraft carrier says people say Tim Duncan is smug and condescending.
He can be. A friend of mine played basketball with him in college and knew him reasonably well, which was kind of funny that me and this friend of mine ended up becoming friends and playing basketball together on the courts in Eastern North Carolina. I went high school with David, and then he went to college with Tim, and then they ended up teaming up in the NBA. It's like, hey, you know him? I know him. So we swapped old stories. But he said, yeah, Tim, especially during like the intramurals and at Wake Forest, when there's no coaches around, that Tim Duncan would talk like really condescending smack.
Mm-hmm. What did JD4 would say throughout NBA history, all teams and organizations believe there's a ref out there who is out to get them.
I disagree. If you actually go back through NBA history, you'll see that there actually were refs out to get them. They just didn't think it. There were. They're people too.
What about the criticism of referees where you'll get fined if you say anything on TV about them if you're associated with the association? What's your thoughts on that? I understand that it's an entertainment business. They may be trying to protect the entertainment. But do you think it should be allowed?
They're trying to protect the people. If you get one of the most famous athletes in America saying that Joe Ref over here, he's horrible, he's out to get me, he's not a good guy, he said this to me, he's nasty, he's got to carry that around. He's going to go shopping, and fans of that player are going to be like, hey, there's that ref. And he's going to have to deal with it in his life just because that's just the way it is. The refs don't get paid like the players do. If you pay them, then you can criticize them. But if you're paying this guy $40 million a year, or the league minimum is $1 million, you're paying this guy $1 million a year at least, and then you're paying the refs like just a stipend compared to that, then you can't treat them that way. You start paying them the same thing that coaches make, so they're on an even playing field, then you can start criticizing them. It's the same as you going and criticizing a waitress and slamming a waitress who's just trying to get through her shift and works for minimum wage and tips. She doesn't have to put up with it. She shouldn't have to put up with that stuff. Well, neither should they. My response is pay them. Pay them the same thing you pay everyone else who's sitting on the court, on the wood, and then you can say what you want.
Woodage says with the ref thing, Iverson getting called for nonstop travels in a playoff game because he called out a ref one time. That is one of the,
but I look at it the other way. It should have been called a travel every time before that.
The aircraft says, am I slamming waitresses? Yeah, every time it's not up to 5-star standard at my Cracker Barrel. Yeah, I've got some hell to raise.
Cracker Barrel. Why does that not surprise me?
I haven't been to a Cracker Barrel in a long time. I used to be a waiter at a Cracker Barrel.
I think I've been to a Cracker Barrel like twice.
Mm-hmm.
And one time we didn't even eat there. Mm-hmm. We sat down. My wife was like 8 months pregnant, and the smell of something coming from the kitchen, which is just a normal food, but because she was 8 months pregnant, it just seemed so foul to her that she was starting to feel physically ill. So we had to leave and go to a different restaurant.
Yeah, it's not fantastic. I like the biscuits and gravy. That's actually, I think, one of the first times I had biscuits and gravy was at a Cracker Barrel, and I love biscuits and gravy.
I've been having biscuits and gravy since I was 2.
No, I didn't even know it existed.
I didn't know they served it at restaurants for the longest time. I thought that was just food I got at home.
Yeah. All right, here's some more famous ones. 1985 NBA draft. What are your thoughts about that situation with Patrick Ewing? And
The frozen envelope, are you referring to?
Yeah, set the stage.
Okay, well, first of all, it's all true. It's not a conspiracy. It's overwhelming evidence. Okay. Stern takes over in 84, right? And between the 84 and 85 draft, in a 365-day period, so to speak, I don't think it ended up being exactly 365. I think it was like 367 or something. I actually checked when I researched this decades ago. What the NBA did, they had Magic in LA, Bird in Boston, Doc and Moses in Philly. But there are large holes. You had Dominique, young guy, looks like he's going to be something, in Atlanta. But essentially, through the rest of the league, you had young Isaiah in Detroit. You had hotbeds of NBA following, and then you had a whole bunch of, okay. So through two drafts, they get Olajuwon in Houston, Jordan in Chicago, Ewing in New York, Barkley in Philly. You see what I'm saying? You get the top players all get evenly distributed all across the map. So every team has someone to be excited about. Chris Mullin out in San Francisco, or I guess technically Oakland. You get Karl Malone and then John Stockton, then Karl Malone into Utah. You get all of these future all-time greats all get evenly distributed across the map. You think that was just coincidence that they all happened to be spread out just perfectly to create the explosion of interest on cable television? Think that was an accident? We already went over. It's a billion-dollar company, multi-billion-dollar company. Nothing is left up to chance. If you think a draft is actually left up to chance, and you're sitting there and you're like, oh my God, who are they going to get? Who are they going to get? Everyone at the league well, maybe not everyone, but the higher-ups, the owners, they know who's going where. Because no owner is going to sit there and say, okay, well, I'm going to leave the entire future of my billion-dollar company up to a coin flip and a lottery selection. And we'll just see where it goes, guys. We'll see if I go bankrupt in a few years and have to sell, or if we're going to end up doing something. No, absolutely not. Anyone who's even owned a lawn mowing business knows that is not how a business succeeds. Of course, it was, as you say, not you, but as they say, it's rigged. But it's not rigged. It was planned. It was forecasted. Teams got options, but they were told what their options were. Portland was not getting Jordan because they already had Drexler. And you ain't getting the two best young wings in the freaking world in back-to-back drafts. Sorry, Portland. You got to pick someone else because we have plans for this guy.
Yeah. What did you say the 85 lottery happened due to the Rockets getting back-to-back number one picks, and the Magic ended up getting back-to-back number one picks in the lottery era about a decade later?
All you got to do is look at the numbers. They'll tell you, oh, this team getting the first pick is a 17% chance. How many number one overall picks did Cleveland get once LeBron left and went to Miami?
I think two more after they got the
Three.
Andrew Wiggins and Kyrie Irving.
Andrew Wiggins, Kyrie, and
and Anthony
the guy
Bennett
from UNLV that didn't make it.
You're right. I forgot about him. Yep, Anthony Bennett.
Yeah. Really? They just, dude, I want to go to Cleveland and buy a freaking lottery ticket at a gas station.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I'm heading to a Flying J. I mean, this is ridiculous. You know, it's absolutely impossible. These numbers are impossible. Of course, it's all predetermined in owners' meetings, what's going to go down. Of course it is. Now, there's leeway, you know, because just like no billionaire is going to leave his $1 billion enterprise up to chance, you know, you also have to work and play nice with others.
Yeah.
So there's wheeling and dealing. I mean, look at how Dr. J got to Philadelphia. Because, you know, it wasn't the laws of the nation that put him there. It was an old rule in the rule book that said that within a certain amount of miles radius of a team, you can't have another team.
Yeah.
So the Nets couldn't come in with Dr. J because they already had the Knicks in New York. And then Philadelphia was in that radius as well. So they made a deal about, okay, we'll let the Nets into the NBA, but you got to give Dr. J to the Sixers because they're not going to let you come in. They're voting no because of the 150-mile radius thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a deal. Okay, that's a plan. That's a deal that's made. He actually was drafted by Milwaukee and actually played with Atlanta for 2 weeks in the preseason, signing a contract with them. All right. Philly got him because of a backdoor deal having to do with the merger. It goes on all the time. People are just so naive.
With that said, with that backdoor deal, just for clarification, that was in between Milwaukee and Philadelphia. It wasn't the league trying to get him away from Kareem, or was it?
Well, no, he tried to join. He wanted to go to Milwaukee and play with Dandridge and Oscar and Kareem. And I believe he actually got on the court with them at one point. But a federal judge ruled that he couldn't because his contract with the ABA was still legal and binding.
Yeah.
So he had to go to Atlanta, who had his original draft rights.
Yeah.
But then the same thing happened there. But then once the merger happened, you have no more ABA. So the whole, you have a binding contract with another team. Well, if that team sells your contract, well, that's different. They have that option. They hold the contract.
Anthony Bennett got drafted and forgot how to play basketball.
Now, if you look at his college stats, he was just never great to begin with. They thought they saw something. They thought they saw another Larry Johnson. But all you had to do was watch his highlights at UNLV. And he averaged 15 points and I think 7.5 rebounds a game. He was not a number one draft pick. That was not his fault at all. He should have never been. Whoever evaluated totally blew that. That was not on him. He did what he could, but he was never that good to begin with. Had you ever heard of him before that draft? Did you know who he was? Was he a high school All-American? Did you hear his name mentioned with, the guys then? No. He was never that. But that's why they lost that. Anthony Bennett is the perfect representation of why LeBron left in the first place. Because the management in Detroit, look, this is when people hear, and I'm one of the biggest proponents, talking about the watered down era, right? That started in the late 80s and 90s. Just because you decide to make more teams so the league will make more money, it doesn't mean that you have enough quality players, coaches, refs, because you need more refs if there's going to be this many more games, or management. And remember, the expansion was sports worldwide. It wasn't just the NBA that expanded in that time. The NFL expanded, and Major League Baseball expanded. I believe hockey expanded as well. Okay, so people who know how to run and manage sports teams were stretched thin. There weren't a whole lot of them. And that's proven by how half of the teams in the NBA today have never won a championship. Half. Okay? It's to talk about parity is ridiculous. There is no parity. There never was.
Yeah. This year's draft, the whole trade where Luka Doncic goes to the Lakers.
That obviously was planned.
Yeah.
And then they just happened to get the first pick, Cooper Flagg, when they had something, what was it, like a less than 23% chance of getting the pick?
Yeah. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? And it's no doubt in your mind it was planned.
Yeah, because Luka didn't want to be in Dallas. But he's a respectable man. He was raised properly, and he's not going to put that out in the public eye. He's not going to say it in the newspaper. But I'm sure he told his agent, and his agent let the Mavericks know, look, I mean, the guy, where is he from? Slovenia?
Yeah.
Okay. If you've been, well, I don't know how much of this you want to say, but vaguely familiar, if you're vaguely familiar with Slovenia in that area of the world, it doesn't really equate to Dallas in any way, shape, or form. Okay.
Yeah.
Just like, Kareem in Milwaukee. Kareem loved the people in Milwaukee. He loved the organization. He was very content with the working conditions, but it just wasn't his type of place. And I think the exact same thing happened with Luka. He's put in his years there. He's worked. They had success. Things were moving upwards. I think he was completely confident in the coaching and the management and loved the people, but it's just not his cup of tea, his type of place.
Yeah.
He wanted to be in a more international type of area. So he goes to LA, and the agreement is, look, we're all right. Don't freak out. Y'all put in all the work. You've put in all the time. You've done all of this. We're not going to let your team just fall by the wayside. We'll make it up to you. We'll make sure you get flag.
Aircraft carrier says Dallas as a city is not bad, but it ain't LA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not saying anything bad about Dallas. It's just you got to think of who this guy is, where he's from, how does he live his life, and does it really equate with the city that he's playing for? Like Wilt was had some of his greatest success in Philadelphia. He never lived, he actually lived in New York. He's from Philadelphia, but when he came back to Philadelphia to play, he lived in New York. Okay. Yeah. When he played with the Warriors, the Philadelphia Warriors, he lived in New York. He had the 100-point game against the Knicks. And after he scored 100 points on them, the Knicks gave him a ride home back to New York in their car. He was asleep in the back seat. Look it up. Google it. Okay.
Yeah, I remember that story.
Yeah. Three. He went home with 3 New York Knicks after dropping 100 on them. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's old school NBA. When you hear these guys say, oh, now these guys are friends. That's just Jordan would never be a friend with a competitor and all this bullshit. Yeah, shut up. Will dropped 100 on their heads and then they gave him a ride home. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what hotel he stayed in when he went to Boston?
Hotel Russell.
Yes. He didn't stay in a hotel. He slept in Bill Russell's house.
Yeah. Yeah. What it said, surprised the Knicks never made a trade for Wilt. What are your thoughts on that?
It has to do with the ownership. The ownership of the Knicks always been very old school, very traditional basketball, always back then. If you look at the Knicks teams that went to, I believe, 4 championships back in the 40s, 50s, or then the 70s, well, they went to more than 4. I think they actually went to like 6 or 7. But in any case, they always had very traditional, well-rounded teams. No dominant individuals ever on any of those teams. You got to go all the way to really Bernard King till you get a dominant individual Knick that like leads the league in scoring and all that. That is not – the Knicks were always – representative of what they considered to be pure team basketball. They didn't want Wilt how Wilt played in his younger years. They didn't want that. In his younger years, it didn't equate to winning. So if all you care about is winning, why would you?
What about fights in the NBA, the brawls, the famous brawls that happened, which still, I don't know too much about hockey. They seem to still happen in hockey. What do you think about the league really clamping down on the brawls in the NBA? Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's just a thing.
Mm-hmm.
We have contact sports. I love watching the videos where Caitlin Clark gets knocked to the ground, and in the comment section, you got 43 people saying that person that knocked her down should be arrested. It's like she got knocked down. She's a professional athlete.
Mm-hmm.
What if she was Ronda Rousey? Oh, my God, she got knocked down. I mean, come on. She's a grown adult. She's a professional athlete. She got knocked down. Yeah, it's called a foul. Okay, let's not freak out. Same thing, you know. But it's the same thing. There's a difference between, you know, elbowing a thousandaire in the face and elbowing a freaking multimillionaire in the face.
Yeah.
All right. You got to start calling it tight because these are all rich men that are running around playing that y'all are watching play basketball. They're all rich. The minimum salary in the NBA is $1 million a year. $1 million.
Yeah.
That's just sit on the bench as the 15th, 16th guy. All right.
Yeah.
So, yes, you're going to get load management. You're going to get tighter rules on, you know, fisticuffs and that type of scenario. All that's going to be clamped down on because we can't risk the asset.
Absolutely. The aircraft carrier says Malice in the Palace was the worst.
That was the worst. That was like videotaped. Yeah. Malice in the Palace happened practically every month back in the 40s and 50s. There's a reason why they were originally called cagers, because original professional basketball games were actually played in a cage. Around the court was hung chicken wire. Okay. It's, you know, it was a vicious. Would have been one of the greatest power forwards of all time. Was paralyzed and ended up in a wheelchair, you know, for the rest of his life because of a cheap shot elbow to the head.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's always happened.
Isn't that how Rudy Tomjanovich's career?
Yeah, Rudy also.
ended? Yeah.
Yeah. Ken Benson, not that he was ever a star, but remember, Ken Benson was College Player of the Year for the last undefeated team in history.
Wow.
And then as a young player, you know, Kareem just gave it to him after he took an elbow. And Ken Benson's career was never the same. He was a bench player. He lost all confidence.
My kitten, as you can see in the background, has diarrhea because it keeps eating the giant cat's food instead of its kitten food. So it's going to poop all over my house later. Anyway, basketball inside hell in a cell is what it says. And then the aircraft carrier says, hearing Rex co-sign load management gave me a different perspective. I believe in the harder you play, the healthier you stay.
Okay.
You think there's some
All I
truth
did
to
was
that?
explain it. I didn't say I agreed with it. I said the reason why it's here.
Yeah.
The reason why it's here is because they make so much. They are now an irreplaceable asset to a billionaire. Billionaires don't like their multi-million-dollar assets being effed with. Okay. That's why there's load management. You know, I always hear people like criticize LeBron James and say, oh, well, load management. Oh, remember, and they'll mention John Stockton because John Stockton played all 82 games or 1 year 50 because it was strike shortened season, but he played every game, 17 out of 19 seasons. First of all, that's not even the record. Elvin Hayes has the record. Mm-hmm. But John Stockton averaged 31 minutes a game. 31. Okay. LeBron has averaged 38 and a half, I think, 39. Okay. He plays 8 more minutes a game. So over the course of like a season, he played, you know, he's playing like entire games more than Stockton did.
Yeah.
Okay, 8 minutes a game, add it up. 8 minutes a game, 82 games. LeBron has played like, it's something crazy. It's like 11,000 more minutes than Stockton.
Yeah.
But people say, oh, well, Stockton played all 82 games. LeBron, he load managing piece of crap. Dude, he's played way more than Stockton. Way more. Way. They load managed Stockton too because he was a little guy. When games got out of hand, he got pulled because they didn't want him getting cheap shots because he was 6'1", 170. That's why a lot of guys say he was a dirty player. He wasn't trying to hurt other people. He was making sure that they didn't hurt him. Because I'm a little point guard. I played the same way. You got to keep a barrier around yourself and let them know you can't come in here or I'm going to whack you. Because I can elbow a 6'8", 240-pound guy, and he's going to feel it, but in the end, he's going to laugh. I can't hurt him. Okay, I got knocked out by a 6'8", 240-pound guy. Driving to the hole one game. All right? And that's when my coach said, you need to start not letting these guys near you. You need to start hitting some guys and letting them know if they get near you, they're going to pay a price.
Yeah. I think this is the most controversial question I could ask. What position, or what position is more important, the post player or the guard or the wing? What's the
Post
most
play
important
over
one?
wing.
Yeah.
Most important positions go center, then point guard.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the biggest because one, their main job is getting possessions. Without the ball, you don't win. The second one controls your possession. If you're not in control, you don't win. Possession and ball control are the most important things in any ball sport or puck sport. And those are the positions as they're traditionally described. You can pull out this particular wing player, that obviously were more important. But as a general rule, if you have a top center and you have a top point guard, you're going to go far.
No.
Because you're controlling the pace of the game and you're controlling possessions. And you can talk about all your, whatever else you want. That's what you need.
Yeah. Hey, Rex. Yeah, I think it's been I like the show a lot, actually. I think this is a fun show. What are your
This
thoughts?
is what I like doing. These are ones
Yeah.
I like.
Yeah. I feel sometimes we get, which I find it fun. I just don't know how fun it is for everyone else when we, you know, talk about Neil Johnston's, preference on clothing brands. but, but you get what I'm saying.
Wait a second. Why did you say that?
What? Neil Johnston's preference on clothing brands?
Yeah. Was
I
that
don't
just
think
an
we-
off-the-cuff remark, or did you
Yeah,
know that during the offseason he actually managed men's clothing stores?
No, it honestly was probably a subconscious thing. I'm sure
You
we
read it
probably-
somewhere and it just popped up? Yeah.
Yeah, I did not actively say it for that reason. And I don't remember that particularly, but it probably was, a kind of like probably just a slip in my subconscious. So he did manage men's clothing stores.
I'm pretty sure he did, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, Neil Armstrong really walked on the moon. I watched it.
Neil Johnston managed men's clothing stores.
That's what I said that to some guys that I work with who are substantially younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
That, they were trying to act like you're not that much older than we are. I'm literally, the two of them combined, I'm older than both of them combined. And I told them, to put it in perspective, when I was born, Jimmy, Jim, and Janice were all still alive. The Beatles were together. Neil Armstrong hadn't walked on the moon yet. Yeah. I believe the day I was born, I Googled it once before. I think the number one song in the country was like Iron Butterfly or something. Like Inagata Davida or something like that. It's, LBJ was president.
You may be able to answer this faster. Did Neil Johnston, did he coach Will Chamberlain?
Yes. I believe he did briefly for a couple weeks, I believe.
This says it
may be longer than that. Maybe a season. No, it wasn't a whole season. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a whole season.
This says the first 2 seasons. I don't know how true it is.
Was it 2 seasons? No, because the story I read as a kid, and what we were talking about before we came on air at the Library of Congress, a story I was reading, I believe it was in an interview. It was actually in a Philadelphia newspaper article from the 60s. Was Neil Johnston was the coach when Wilt was drafted, I believe. And Neil Johnston was a player coach, I believe. But once training camp started and he had to play against Wilt, he gave up the whole player coach thing and said, "I'm just coach." He said, I ain't doing this.
How much impact?
No, I did not play basketball with Jesus. He was more of a soccer guy. But me and John the Baptist, we had some great one-on-one battles in the day. There was this court north of the Dead Sea. Great on when it wasn't a windy day. Love those rims.
Do you think that Neil Johnston had any influence on Wilt Chamberlain's scoring prowess during that time, or do you think it was too limited? I only asked because Neil Johnston was a fantastic scorer himself.
No. Wilt had a full bag when he walked into the NBA.
Yeah. Wilt
was playing against pro players when he was 15 and 16 years old under an assumed name.
Mm-hmm.
All right. He was the real deal, the complete thing before he ever got to the NBA. And his scoring prowess at the NBA level was all preconceived. Eddie Gottlieb, the owner of the team, wanted to sell the team. He wanted to get out, and he was a circus guy. He made his money during the vaudeville years. He was a showman, and he had an idea for a different business. And he was trying to sell the Warriors, but they were a losing franchise, and not just on the court, off the court. They weren't making money. No one's going to buy a losing product. So he wanted to up publicity, up, revenue, not for his own pocket, but because he wanted to show a profit so he could, interest investors so he could get out and go do what he wanted to do. So he came up with the idea of, hey, you think Wilt could, 50? And he hired the coach that year was actually the same coach that beat Wilt for the national championship in, I believe it was 57 or 58, triple overtime game, Kansas and North Carolina. The coach that coached North Carolina, McGuire, ended up being Wilt's coach in that 61-62 season. And because he knew Wilt. He knew how to beat Wilt. So he knew how to use Wilt. And that was a preconceived idea. And if you read Gottlieb's book, if you read Wilt's book, if you read McGuire's book, all three mention that it was decided in training camp. In fact, the first words McGuire said to Wilt walking in the first day of training camp is, "You're going to average 50 points a game, big guy." I mean, it was already, that was the plan, because they knew they weren't winning the championship. They didn't have a good enough roster. They weren't going to turn it around in 1 year to a championship team, and the owner wanted to get out. So that was the plan. When they say, well, he took 4,000, he took however many shots he took that year, he scored 4,029 points, averaged 50 a game, played every minute of every game except for 8 minutes of a fourth quarter because he got thrown out for fighting. He played every other minute of every game, even the overtimes, everything. People, he's an Iron Man, and he scored all these points. It was preconceived. They were going to do it. When the other team's center sat down and the sub came in, they just kept going at him. They just kept pumping it to Wilt because they wanted all the news articles. They wanted and 2,000 news articles were written about Wilt that year.
Wow.
In the United States. 2,000. So they got the publicity. They got what they wanted. Gottlieb sold the team. The team moved to San Francisco. And then, per backdoor agreement, another one, Wilt was traded back to Philadelphia the next year after they drafted Nate Thurman.
Yeah. All interesting stuff. All right, Rex, I'm going to get going. My son woke up early. He wasn't sleeping well, so I don't know if you heard that. but yeah, it's fantastic. Do you have any last words for the people?
On these particular subjects, I don't know. Just keep looking into stuff. Look at the stories behind the stories. That's when you learn what happens. The NBA is not a fairy tale. It's a reality show.
Absolutely. I want to mention for everybody that there's going to be a debate tomorrow between me and Travis. It's going to be the 96 Bulls versus the 2001 Lakers. What team is greater? Come check it out.
I don't get that. I don't get that argument.
What do you mean? What team was more fantastical?
It obviously was the Bulls. They set the record for wins. They have the most championships with that coach. That coach has the most championships. They have 3 Hall of Famers. Well, actually, I think they're at 5 Hall of Famers now that were on that team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's you got Jordan. I mean, It was the championship after coming back. It was their fourth as a franchise. It was I don't understand. I mean, it was such a historically memorable team.
No, I even asked because when I brought it up, I said, well, let's do who we think the greatest teams of all time are. And he said 2001 Lakers. And I said, okay, I'll pick the 96
I would
Bulls.
argue 72 Lakers or 88 Lakers.
Well, that's what I offered.
2001.
Well, I even offered to bring it down, to do another great team, but not the one that I thought was the greatest of all time, one of them being the 72 Lakers. And he said, no, let's just argue 96 versus 2001. We're gonna have a judge apparently with Kings Beach Row, and potentially one of his co-hosts. I'm unsure exactly this, and maybe Hoop God will come and judge too. But he said he has church.
Cool. I haven't talked to him in a while.
Yeah, he said he has church, so we'll see. But that'll be tomorrow instead of today, at noon Eastern. So same time as this show. We're transitioning to Sunday. This way I have some time to actually develop the debate, or it's more of an excuse. I mean, it's not like I
need to.
I just don't like rushing. I don't like waking up earlier or rushing within an hour right before the debate to do it. It's just feel a little.
You don't like wind sprints?
Not in this capacity, no. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. Aircraft carrier, Woodage. I think you're the only two that commented today. It's we really do appreciate your input and us collaborating, communicating with you in respect to these conversations. I know for me, it's prior to my channel, the channel, being removed or whatever. I don't want to say my channel, the channel being removed. I kind of forgot this interaction because it just had gotten so much larger than the show and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of refreshing to start at the bottom again and doing this kind of communication. At the same time, there's also less people wanting to call in and also do this. So we're building from the ground up. So, but either way, I appreciate you guys. Fantastic. And I hope you all have a fantastic day.
I'm going out to the park on a 109 heat index day with my kids.
Yeah. And
Summer
everyone
in Coastal Carolina.
And everyone learned the game.
Please, y'all frustrate the heck out of me.